In this video, you will understand 4 mistakes that keep many people stuck in the same financial life for years. Spending everything they earn, going into debt for useless things, refusing to learn about money, and continuing to be surrounded by people who pull their mindset down. And the first mistake begins exactly at the moment the paycheck hits the account. The first mistake is living day after day without saving anything. This is a silent mistake because it seems normal. The person receives their salary and already knows the money won't last. First they pay the bills, then they buy something they were waiting for, then they handle an emergency, then they go out to eat, buy some clothes, pay an installment, help someone, stop by the market, fill up the car. And when they realize it, the money has disappeared. They look at their account and think, again, nothing was left. Except that again becomes routine. 1 month saving nothing, 2 months saving nothing, a whole year saving nothing, 5 years working and without building a reserve, 10 years receiving a salary and without forming a foundation. And here is the danger. Whoever lives only waiting for the next paycheck is always one problem away from financial despair. All it takes is one emergency, a car repair, a medical expense, a delayed paycheck, an unexpected bill, and that's it. The person needs to use a credit card, borrow money, or go into debt. Not because they are incapable, not because they don't work, but because they never created the habit of saving before spending. Many people think this way: when I earn more, I'll start saving. But that phrase is a trap, because whoever can't save a little when they earn little will hardly save a lot when they earn more. The salary increases, but desires increase too. Income rises, but the standard of living rises with it. The person starts buying better things, taking on larger installments, going to more expensive places, changing their phone, changing their car, improving their appearance. And in the end, they're still without money. That is why money works like a mirror. It doesn't just show how much you earn. It shows how you live. It shows your discipline. It shows your priorities. It shows whether you control your desires or whether your desires control you. If a person receives 1,000 and can't save 100, perhaps the problem isn't just the salary amount. Perhaps the problem is the habit. Because when they start earning 2,000, 3,000 or 5,000, if the mindset stays the same, the money will still disappear. That's why the first step isn't to wait for a surplus. The first step is to set money aside first. Did you get paid? Set a part aside. It can be 10%. It can be less at the beginning. What matters is creating the habit. Because saving money isn't just accumulating bills or numbers in an account. Saving money is training your mind to understand that your future also needs to be paid for. Many people pay everyone else first. They pay the market, pay the bank, pay the store, pay the app, pay the credit card, pay the bill, pay interest, and leave their own future for last. But when it's the future's turn, nothing is left. So the rule needs to change. Before spending everything, set something aside for yourself. Before pleasing others, protect a part of your future. Before buying on impulse, plant a seed for your freedom. Imagine 2 people receiving the same salary. The first receives it and spends everything. They spend the entire month putting out fires. When a problem arises, they panic. When they want to grow, they have no capital. When an opportunity appears, they can't take advantage of it. The second receives it and sets a small part aside every month. At first, it seems like little. It even seems unimportant. But after a few months, they have a reserve. After a year, they have security. After more time, they have money to study, invest, start something small, or take advantage of an opportunity. The difference between the two didn't start with the salary, it started with the habit. And that is how many people change their lives, not with a great magical turnaround, but with a small decision repeated every month. Because saving money is like planting. On the first day, you look at the soil and see almost nothing, but if you keep tending to it, the root grows. And when the root grows, the tree appears. The problem is that many people eat the seed before it has a chance to become a tree. They receive money and spend everything. They receive again and spend everything, and then they wonder why their financial life never grows. If you want to get out of financial fragility, you need to stop living only for today. Today is important, but tomorrow will also come. And when it comes, you'll want to have built something. So start simple. Take a small part of what you receive and save it before spending. Don't wait to get rich to have discipline. Use discipline to start building wealth, because it's not the salary alone that changes your life. It's what you do with it. This is the first mistake that keeps many people poor, living day after day, paycheck after paycheck, saving nothing. And as long as that habit doesn't change, any money that comes in just passes through your hands and disappears. But when you learn to separate, protect, and accumulate, money stops being just survival and begins to transform into a foundation for freedom. The second mistake is taking on credit to buy useless things. And this mistake traps many people for years because it seems small at first. The person thinks, it's just one installment. Then comes another installment, then another. A new phone, new furniture, a trip paid in installments, an expensive piece of clothing, a car above their budget, a purchase made on impulse, and when they realize it, the salary is already committed before it even hits the account. This is the danger of misused credit. It makes you feel like you can buy now, even without having real money. It delivers pleasure in the present, but collects freedom in the future. The person buys something today to feel good for a few days, but spends months paying for it. And often, by the time they finish paying, the item has lost its value, has gotten old, no longer brings the same joy. But the money that could have been saved, invested, or used to grow is already gone. It's like putting a chain on your own salary. Every month, a portion of the money goes to the bank, another portion goes to the store, another goes to interest, another goes to old installments. And what's left to build the future gets smaller and smaller. Many people don't realize it, but bad debts steal more than money. They steal peace, they steal sleep, they steal courage. The person stops thinking about opportunities because they're busy trying to survive until the next bill. And here is the difference. Debt used to build something can have strategy. But debt used to impress, consume, or appear successful can destroy financial life. Buying an expensive phone on installments just to seem up to date is not growth. Buying furniture beyond your means just to show comfort is not wealth. Financing a trip without having a reserve is not freedom. Changing cars just to impress people who won't even pay your bills is not financial intelligence. It is appearance bought with tomorrow's money. Robert Kiyosaki always teaches that rich people understand the difference between assets and liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. And many consumer debts only increase the liabilities in a person's life. So before taking on any installment, ask a simple question. Will this put money in my pocket, or will it take money from me every month? If it's going to take money away, think twice, because every installment you take on today is a part of your salary that will no longer be yours tomorrow. The person who wants to get out of poverty needs to stop buying things that don't build anything. They need to stop using credit to satisfy emotions. They need to understand that not everything that fits in a monthly payment fits in their financial life. Sometimes, the real price of a purchase isn't the number on the tag, it's the delay it causes in your goals. While one person uses credit to buy things that lose value, another uses the same money to pay off debts, learn a skill, build a reserve, or invest in something that can generate income. After some time, the difference shows. One keeps paying for the past. The other starts building the future. This is the second mistake that keeps many people poor, turning credit into a lifestyle. If you want to change your financial life, start looking at every debt seriously. Cut what isn't necessary. Avoid impulsive installments. Stay away from purchases made to impress. And remember, financial freedom begins when you stop handing your salary over to pay for decisions that took you nowhere. The third mistake is refusing to learn the laws of money. And this may be one of the most dangerous mistakes because many people don't even realize they're making it. The person works, receives a salary, pays bills, complains that money isn't enough, but never stops to study how money really works. They learn to work, but don't learn to manage. They learn to follow orders, but don't learn to create income. They learn to earn money, but don't learn to protect money. And the result is simple. Money comes in, but doesn't stay. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that the lack of financial education can be very costly because financial ignorance charges interest every month. It shows up in the credit card, in loans, in impulse purchases, in missed opportunities, and in bad decisions. Many people think it's expensive to buy a book, take a course, or set aside time to study money. But they don't think it's expensive to pay interest for years. They don't think it's expensive to lose money due to lack of planning. They don't think it's expensive to work an entire life and arrive at the end with no assets. And here is a strong truth. Ignorance costs more than bank interest. Because when a person doesn't understand money, they accept any debt, buy anything in installments, believe any easy promise, and always live on the edge. They don't know the difference between an asset and a liability. They don't understand cash flow. They don't know where the salary is going. They don't know how to make money grow. Now think about that simple neighbor, perhaps a tailor, a bricklayer, a salesperson, an ordinary person. They weren't born rich, didn't win the lottery, didn't have great advantages, but every night, instead of just wasting time complaining, they read a little about finances. They learned to save, they calculated before buying, they avoided useless debts. They thought twice before spending. They may not have become a millionaire, but they built their home. They created a reserve. They had a more peaceful old age. They slept with less fear about the bills, and none of that came from luck. It came from discipline and learning. While many around them said, "Money is hard," they asked, "How can I make better use of the money I have?" That question changes a life. Because whoever learns about money starts to see what they couldn't see before. They begin to notice that small repeated expenses turn into big losses, that bad debts steal the future, that saving before spending creates security, that investing in knowledge can increase income, that a salary shouldn't just be consumed, but transformed into a foundation for freedom. So if you want to get out of poverty, stop treating financial education as something distant. You don't need to start by understanding everything. Start with the basics. Learn to control expenses, learn to save, learn to get out of debt, learn the difference between buying something that loses value and investing in something that can grow. Because whoever doesn't learn about money spends their life being controlled by it. This is the third mistake, thinking you can win financially without studying money. You can't. If you want to change your life, you also need to change what enters your mind. Less complaining, more learning, less impulse, more calculation, less excuses, more awareness. Because money respects those who learn to direct it. And when you begin to understand the laws of money, you stop being just someone who works to survive and begin to become someone who builds their own future. The fourth mistake is continuing to be around people who pull you down. And this mistake is far more serious than it seems, because many people think poverty is just a lack of money. But often, poverty is also an environment. It's a conversation. It's an influence. It's a mindset that seeps into a person's head every day, without them noticing. You might even want to change your life. You might want to save, study, invest, grow, get out of debt, and build something better. But if every day you only spend time with people who mock your dreams, criticize your discipline, and normalize the lack of progress, it becomes harder and harder to stay firm. Because the environment speaks to you all the time. If you are surrounded by people who only complain, eventually you start complaining too. If you are surrounded by people who spend everything, eventually that starts to seem normal. If you are surrounded by people who live in debt but joke about it, you start to think debt is just part of life. If you are surrounded by people who have no plans, eventually your own plans start to seem excessive. And that is the danger. Sometimes, what is holding back your financial life isn't a lack of intelligence. It's an excess of wrong influence. There are people who, when you say you're going to save money, respond, "Give it a rest, life is short." When you say you're going to study, they say, "You think you're better than everyone." When you say you want to start a business, they comment, "That's not for people like us." When you start changing your habits, the person says, "You've gotten weird." But perhaps you need to get weird precisely to those who got used to a stagnant life. Because whoever wants a different future can't keep thinking like everyone around them. Robert Kiyosaki always talks about the importance of financial education and mindset. And part of that mindset comes from the people you spend time with, because every conversation can feed your vision or weaken your courage. Imagine a person who earns little but decided to change. They start setting money aside, avoid unnecessary purchases, begin reading about finances, look to learn a new skill, try to create an extra income. But around them, everyone says it's nonsense. A friend calls them to spend money every weekend. Another says investing is for rich people. Another says studying as an adult is pointless. Another keeps saying the government, the boss, or luck are to blame for everything. If that person doesn't protect their own mind, they'll get tired. They'll start to doubt themselves. They'll think, "Am I overreacting? Is it worth it? Can I really do this?" And little by little, they may abandon the plan. Now imagine another person in the same situation, but with a different environment. They talk with people who are trying to improve. They hear ideas about money. They learn from those who got out of debt. They observe those who live with discipline. They draw closer to people who talk about growth, work, investment, business, knowledge, and responsibility. That person also faces difficulties. They also have problems. They also get tired. But the environment around them reminds them every day that growing is possible. That is the difference. One environment pulls you down, the other pushes you forward. And here it's important to be clear. This doesn't mean abandoning everyone. It doesn't mean looking down on old friends. It doesn't mean feeling superior. It simply means understanding that you need to be more selective about who has access to your mind, your time, and your plans. Because not everyone who cares about you understands the future you're trying to build. Some people care about you, but they care about the old version, the version that spent without thinking, the version that accepted any invitation, the version that complained along with everyone, the version that didn't bother anyone with change. When you start to grow, some people feel uncomfortable because your change reminds them that they could change too. And not everyone wants to face that. So sometimes they try to diminish your dream to protect their own comfort. They say you won't make it. They say it's too hard. They say money changes people. They say those who try to grow become arrogant. But deep down, many times, they just don't want to see you leave a place where they decided to stay. And if you listen to those voices for too long, you might start to believe them. That's why, if you want to change your financial life, you need to do a cleanup in your environment. Not necessarily cutting people off radically, but reducing the influence of those who only bring discouragement, distraction, and small thinking. Spend less time in conversations that build nothing. Stop sharing your plans with those who only know how to criticize. Avoid asking for financial advice from those who are financially lost. Stop seeking approval from people who don't want the same future as you. Instead, start moving closer to new environments. Read better books. Watch content that teaches. Follow people who talk about money responsibly. Talk with those who have discipline. Look to learn from those who have walked a similar path. Because sometimes, changing your environment doesn't mean changing cities. It means changing what you listen to, what you consume, who you talk to, and which ideas you allow into your mind. And that changes everything. A person who spends years hearing "it won't work" starts living as if nothing were possible. But a person who starts hearing "learn, try, organize, invest, build" starts to see paths. Maybe the salary is the same at the beginning. Maybe the reality is still difficult. But the mind starts to change. And when the mind changes, decisions change. When decisions change, results start to change too. This is the fourth mistake that keeps many people poor, continuing to be surrounded by people who normalize poverty, mock growth, and weaken your vision. You need to understand that your financial life doesn't depend only on the money that comes in. It also depends on the ideas that come in. If every day ideas of defeat, fear, complaining, and complacency come in, your future will reflect that. But if every day ideas of discipline, learning, responsibility, and building come in, you begin to act differently. So observe carefully. Are the people around you feeding your courage or your excuses? Are they strengthening your future or keeping you tied to the past? Are they helping you grow or making you feel ashamed for wanting a better life? Because poverty is not a sentence. But if you continue living only among poor thoughts, you may end up accepting a poor life as if it were destiny. And it is not destiny. It is habit, it is environment, it is repetition, it is choice, and all of it can be changed. If you want to get out of financial fragility, start by protecting your mind. Choose your conversations more carefully. Choose your examples more carefully. Choose your influences more carefully. Because often the first wealth you need to build isn't in a bank account, it's in the way you think. When your mind changes its environment, your life starts to change direction. And perhaps that is the first step toward going from someone who merely survives every month to someone who builds a future with more security, awareness, and freedom. In the end, these four mistakes reveal a simple truth. Many people remain poor not because they don't work, but because they repeat habits that destroy money. Spending everything you earn, going into debt for useless things, not learning about money, and surrounding yourself with people who pull you down are choices that seem small, but over time they trap your financial life. But you can change that starting today. Begin by saving a little. Avoid unnecessary debts. Learn more about money. Protect your mind and choose your influences more carefully. Poverty doesn't have to be your destiny. It can simply be a habit you decided to leave behind. So to confirm this commitment to yourself, comment now, "I will not make these mistakes." And if this video helped you, like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who also needs to change their financial life.